You are listening to the Latinx Business Podcast, where we uncover the business unknowns through the stories and anecdotes of entrepreneurs and business owners in the Latinx community. I am your host, Randy Gomez, and I hold a Master's in Business Administration. I also hold an IRS and road agent license, which allows me to help freelancers, partnerships, and corporations in navigating the complex tax law system of America. Thank you for joining us. Now let's talk business. Hey Sharlene, welcome to the Latinx Business Show. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you for having me, Randy. Excited to be here.
Of course, thank you. I know your time is precious and you are super busy helping a lot of business owners. So let's get right into it. First thing is let me introduce you. So Sharlene Dominguez is a senior business consultant with 7 years of experience at Paychex, supporting the business community with payroll compliance and insurance. I know you've shared with me in the past that you've been in different positions, so maybe we can get into that and how that experience has helped you with the position you're at right now. But the main point of today's podcast or episode is going to be payroll for first-time employers. It's the first time they have to set up payroll, so a lot of the questions will focus on that. With that said, let's get right into it. What is your preferred pronoun?
She, her.
She, her. Okay,
Me,
so
yes.
we'll refer to you as she, her. What about in the Latinx community? Like, how do you identify? What's your heritage?
I would definitely say I identify myself as Mexican American. Even though I would say I'm third generation, my grandparents were the ones from Mexico. I want to make sure that I don't lose where my family's from, where I'm from. Part of me is Mexican, but of course I was born here. So I also am American. So I just put the two together and Mexican American.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I think it's important for people to say how they identify. One, because we are mixed, right? First and foremost, living in the U.S., we're very diverse. But also, growing up, like my dad was very, very adamant about saying you're Mexican. You know, you identify as Mexican. But then, to me, I knew that part of me that was like, I'm growing up in America. Half of our family is in Mexico, and the other half is here. So you're right. I identify as both. And I think I will always do so. I think it's just very important. Okay.
Just to keep the culture.
Yeah, definitely. And then within your heritage, like where is your family from in Mexico?
Yeah, so on my mom's side, my grandparents are from Jalisco, Mexico. We have some family as well in Guadalajara. And then on my dad's side, they are from Nayarit, Mexico. I say best of both worlds. Typically, Nayarit is a lot of like seafood, which I love.
Yeah, so one thing a lot of people don't know about Nayarit, and maybe you do because your family's from there, but Nayarit has their own Riviera Maya, right? So Cancun has their own Riviera Maya, which is just a location where it's like it's an ecological location that's been designated as a national treasure, and it's like beautiful. I mean, I know everyone's going to Cancun. People do a lot of trips there. People get married. I personally think Riviera Nayarit is more affordable, fun, and it's just as gorgeous as Cancun, and it's closer to Los Angeles, right?
Yep.
So the flight
Beautiful.
is much.
Beaches are gorgeous. My grandma, she doesn't live too far from the beach, so it's a very pretty place. I wish I would visit more often, but yes, definitely where my dad's side of the parents are from.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, cool. So then let's get right into your business. I mean, your work. What do you do? So yeah, explain to us a little bit more. I know I mentioned a little bit in the beginning what you do, but maybe you start going into little details of how you assist clients in the current role that you're in.
Of course. So I essentially am a CPA-centric consultant here at Paychex, and my main role is supporting my accounting community, just being a resource to accountants and their clients. Of course, a lot of times many tax professionals want nothing to do with payroll and compliance. So that is where I step in. I essentially help just business owners, typically starting off with payroll, and as their business grows, more support on the compliance side. So essentially, my support here at Paychex is we are like a one-stop shop for businesses, right? We provide anything from payroll, tax administration, K administration, all types of insurances from workers' comp to dental health and vision. HR support is a big thing as well, credit card processing. Basically everything that a business, a growing business would need in order to make sure, we save them time, we save them, they're more efficient, and just main thing is compliance.
Yes. Okay, right now you just mentioned it, efficient. And I want to just make that little comment about the client we just onboarded not that long ago. And it is 2025 today, but it was in 2024 when we onboarded them at the end of Q4, right? Last year.
Yes.
And they were still doing payroll by hand, right? 100% by hand.
Oh, yes.
Right? How
Yes,
easy
yes.
was that case for us to work on? Because they're like, it's a small business, but employees on payroll by hand that they pay out and write checks to every week, right? So transitioning them from that to digital, and even just like the small little struggles that I was like, that's a lot. Like I don't do payroll. That's why I work with you guys, right? As Paycheck, because you guys are my support team and professionals over on the payroll side, and you guys have all the answers to any payroll questions we have. I was kind of afraid to be like, can we take on this client? So I really needed to lean on you, right? I felt like, oh my God, this is an office that has this many amount of employees, and they've been doing business like this for 30 plus years, and I get it, but and it works for them. How did you feel bringing them on? Because I know you had to help us out with some of the payroll tax payments. Right?
Yes. So it was not too many businesses like this that I deal with. Typically, over the years, people transition out of manual work and they just outsource it, right? And I think the biggest benefit, and I'm sure this client now realizes, is, hey, we were just spending way too much time with the payroll, processing, right? It was just one of those situations where I'm like, oh my goodness, how much time are they spending just writing everything down? And it's not like we were dealing with just one man. It was quite a handful of staff. So, definitely manual work, we're all human, right? We're all human. It can definitely lead to error, right? And that's something that you don't want when it comes to payroll taxes, because we both know both agencies, IRS and the state of that they're doing business in, is very particular. They want things a certain way at a certain time in a certain format.
If not, there's penalties. Yeah, it's not for interrupting, but remember, there's penalties for not paying your payroll taxes on time, even your federal and state taxes as well. But yeah, that also, I'm glad you touched on that point, because not only was it more about upgrading their systems for me on my end, because I work with a lot of businesses and I'm like, hey, you're going to work with me, it's going to be virtual and it's going to be everything online and everything is going to be digitized, right? But you touched the important thing you said was the accuracy, right? Human handling of like business records by hand is by no means illegal or not the right thing to do for a business. You can do business that way if that's the way you like. But then you need to double check, triple check, quadruple check your work. Make sure that all the numbers are adding up. And you're right. Instead of it taking 30 minutes to enter payroll for this week, well, maybe now it would take her maybe 2 or 3 hours every week, right? So yes, they're now paying for your service, but again, that comes with so many benefits, and we can go into that later as well. But the reduction of time that you have your employees working on one task, I think is the biggest thing for a business, which, at the end of the day, it increases your profit, right? At the end of the day and at the end of the month and overall. So about that, in terms of a client or that they need payroll, and it's the first time they're doing payroll, how should they look for a payroll provider, right? Because a lot of people do come to me with that question and they ask me like, Randy, who do you recommend? And I'm like, hey, Paychex, my preferred payroll provider and partner that we partnered up with. But what about all the other options that are out there? If you could talk a little bit.
Yes, that is a really great question, as I'm sure every business owner asks themselves that. I would say that there are different factors to consider when a business owner is looking at what direction to go with. I think first and foremost would be the recommendation of their tax professional, their accountant, right? Many tax accountants have so many years of experience under their belt. They probably have heard or worked with many different payroll providers. So if they're recommending someone, they know their client is in good hands. Recommendation of the just tax professional is something to keep in mind and strongly consider. Second, I would say customer service. I think this is a key area when it comes to new business owners or people new to payroll, right? When you're not familiar with something, I think you need to rely on someone for support, kind of like hand holding you throughout the whole process, just to make sure we get you from, onboarding yourself to the final stage, which is the day-to-day of processing payroll. Here at Paychex, for example, that's where we pride ourselves on, right? We want to make sure that during the onboarding stage, we're walking you through every documentation, everything you need to have, all the registrations that need to be done. And we want to make sure that when we are creating it, it's done correctly, right? And then, of course, the final stage is just having that one-on-one support, when it comes to learning a new system, learning a new process, getting familiar with, hey, what are these taxes regarding? And here at Paychex, I think we really do a good job at focusing on that. And then just to take it a step further, since we did talk about, where we're from, I think we do a really, really great job supporting our Latino community. Here at Paychex, if a client, lets me know like, hey, Shar, I feel a little bit more comfortable with, speaking to a Spanish-speaking bilingual payroll specialist, we have a whole team that solely focuses on supporting our Spanish-speaking clients, because we understand that sometimes people feel more comfortable in their preferred language, right? So that is where we have the capability to provide them with one point of contact that speaks Spanish, and there they decide, how much hand-holding they want. And then lastly, to make another point on the service side, is we really, really value our partnerships, our relationship with our accountants. We want to make sure we make their job easier, not harder. So here at Paychex, we also do have what we call accountant care team, which is basically a team of tenured payroll specialists that address any request, any issues, any concerns with regard to all our mutual clients.
Okay. Yeah, and you know what? I do want to touch on two things you mentioned, because in the time that I've been working with businesses, and if you could touch a little bit about customer service, because I know Paychex might not be the cheapest option out there for employers. And also, as a business owner myself, I feel like we need to save money. Not that we're trying to cut corners or anything, but there's only a certain amount of money that comes in, and you're like, okay, but I still need more help, and I still gotta pay this help, right? So you're looking for ways to reduce costs at all times. But what is provided in your customer service or along with the Paychex monthly package, right? Because, for example, I know you said that a lot of accountants are like, I don't want to touch payroll because it's a huge liability, right? Yes, and then two, I do federal and state taxes, so I wouldn't have the time to do payroll tax every 2 weeks or once a month, and then submit those taxes for the clients and do the payroll tax returns and how often those come out, and then the year-end stuff, right? So if you could touch a little bit about how your service differs from the other ones and stuff like that.
No, definitely. Diving a little bit deeper on our service model. First and foremost, I think it's a key is letting clients know, hey, you will always have me as an additional contact, right? Because I understand not only do I value the relationship I have with my accounting partner, but also I do recognize this is a new company for them, a new system. There's a lot of moving parts, and there's also a lot of contacts that they may come across. And I say, hey, use me as your additional support, whether you need a little bit of guidance, or who can help me with this, or I'm trying to do this, relying on not only my support, but also the support of the team of specialists. So we have the one-on-one assigned payroll specialist that typically works, standard 8 to 5. However, we have support 24/7, right? So a lot of my early bird clients or clients that work late at night and they don't have time to respond from 8 to 5, always someone that will answer before work hours, after work hours, even on the weekends. And like I said, that is where We're also very flexible. I tell clients on how you communicate the payroll to us, right?
Yeah.
You can definitely do it online, but you can also rely on the payroll specialist sending the hours through email, scheduling a phone call. For my officer only clients, sometimes they want to be as hands off as possible. So we have the capacity, the capability to put their account on auto payroll as well. So just giving them different types of support and then ultimately choosing, hey, this process works best for me.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's crucial too, right? Because I feel like even the online service payroll providers, it's a lot of like do it yourself and there's no one you can reach out to. Or if you do reach out to someone, it's never going to be the same person, right? So that continuity of institutional knowledge in your company for payroll is going to get lost. Like you're just going to have to explain yourself 5 times to 5 different customer representatives until there's one that says like, oh, we need to do, this is how we solve this issue, right? But I just think it's also important though to like work with someone like you guys, because one, the payroll tax returns, right, are still have to be filed in on time. They have to match the records of what payroll was paid out for that quarter. And so imagine a business owner has to do the once a year their taxes, right, for the business. But this is quarterly that you guys do for us as part of your service. And you also pay the federal and the state taxes and like the FUTA, right, all the Social Security and Medicare taxes and all that stuff. So it's a few agencies you gotta pay and have official reporting to. So if that's done wrong, that could have bigger financial consequences for a client. But which I think you guys have the liability guarantee, right? What is it called?
Correct. Yes. Essentially, when we're onboarding a client, they sign off on power of attorney forms. Basically, say, "Hey, I'm giving the tax liability of my business to Paychex," and basically, company, essentially is the reporting agent in the eyes of the IRS, and then whatever state they're doing business in. But yes, 100% tax liability. So we're responsible for not only processing our clients' payroll, but most importantly, making sure that we calculate the federal and state or local taxes and making sure those are paid on time. And then, of course, all of the quarterly and annual returns that come through doing payroll.
Yeah, and that's important because one, you gotta calculate it correctly, right? And formulas could always change. I think depending on the administration. I know Donald Trump changed it back in 2018, and their formulas I think are set to expire in 25, but they can always be extended or changed again. And that's so much to keep up with, which you guys and your professional team keeps up with, right? With the laws and stuff like that. So that's why I 100% recommend you guys, because I feel like I need to focus on my business, which is federal and state taxes, but then you guys focus on payroll and assist in that more.
Exactly. And especially to just make a quick point, there's different times of the year, we're coming into on your space, right? Accounting world where you guys are very busy, right? The last thing you would want is to have, different contacts for different providers, right? I just want one person that can help you address or assist you with any matters. I think that's also something to keep in mind. I think that we can probably all agree on what we've been discussing, just efficiency. Like, how can we be the most efficient for our business clients, and then of course for our accountants as well.
Mm-hmm. And then even just to touch about efficiency, freeing up the business owner so they could focus on other tasks, right? Like I free up the business owner so that they don't have to do their own taxes. They don't have to do their own bookkeeping. And now you guys get to free up the business owners so that they can focus more on making more money or making more business or, because the do-it-yourself services, I think, frustrate a lot of business owners, or at least that's what I've heard from business owners. And they're like, oh, they want me to run this like every week. And it's like, well, no, you don't have to run payroll every week. That's just the frequency that you chose when you first signed up with that do-it-yourself service, right? So it's like no one's going to be there to guide them. And I think that's the biggest thing. I think the guidance is important. I like the fact that you guys give me access to their payroll. So if like maybe I can go in there and look at something, or pull a report so that way we can reconcile their bookkeeping accounts and make sure everything's categorized correctly. I don't have to go through you or through the business owner. Like we don't have to bother the business owner and say, give us this report every 2 weeks or give us this report every month.
Or you have a meeting with them and before they sit down with you, they need to have X and Y, X through Z reports ready to go. Yes, efficiency. So yes, we have a dashboard for our accountants, and they can just simply, as they please, go into every profile, every account, and look at information or reports.
Yeah, and like even with that said, how you guys would set up meetings with clients and walk them through the online portal, like the dashboard, right? The software you guys offer for them. Like even sometimes I find myself like I could reply to a client in a quick email and say like, oh, you should be able to do this. This is in there, or you can pull this report because I know what reports are on Paychex.
That is a very good point, Randy. Yes, you're you're familiar with a certain process, a certain system, so that's just more support, more guidance we can provide our business owner, because you mentioned they should be focusing on their growing their business, on just increasing profits, where they shouldn't be focused so much on admin. We should be able to take it from there. So if you have an accounting partner that's very familiar with any questions, just because they're familiar with the process, the product, the technology, it's more efficiency, creating more efficiency for everyone.
Yeah, and Paychex, the online software, I think it just takes like a minute or a few tries to kind of get the hang of it. It's like any software, and even just bringing up the client that we onboarded and they're like, hey, this software seems complicated or not user friendly. A lot of it for me, I think you just need to sit down with the software. It's the first time you're seeing it. It is user friendly to me. I think that it's not like, maybe he thinks it's not as intuitive, but I think that once you learn the software, you're like, okay, I know that Paychex has our backs and they have all the reports there, right? We were talking about it a little bit before coming on in the show that like, I want business owners to be like a little bit more patient, right? Or be more understanding, and it's a process that it's something new to you, especially if you're like, hey, it's the first time I'm running payroll as a LLC owner or as an S Corp owner or as a corporation. Because they have the requirements, right, to run payroll, or they have employees and stuff like that. But I just have seen so many people talk about other business, like payroll platforms. And I even had one client once tell me, well, Paychex is also not the best, but it's the best amongst the rest of them. And I was like, oh, that's bad, for her to be like, all payroll systems are not great. But I do think that it's very helpful. Like, if I didn't have you, there would be some questions I couldn't answer for my clients. Right? Because you're the specialist. You're the professional that knows that.
Exactly. No. You hit it on the dot. I think it's like with anything we do. If we're implementing something new, there's just going to be a slight learning curve, right? You're not familiar with our interface. Something new takes time, and just getting familiar with everything. But as clients navigate through the system, and that's where we, with the help of our support team, we can do additional demos. We have a little help center on the left bottom corner of the platform where it's like how-tos, like, hey, how do I add direct deposit? How do I terminate an employee? How do I do this? How do I do that? And because like anything in life, if you're not familiar with it, it does take a little bit of some time just to, become an expert.
Actually, I'm glad you reminded me of that, because I tend to use it, and sometimes I forget that it's there, the how-tos that you guys already created.
The how-tos, the demos with the payroll specialist. There's even the chat, right? You can chat, hey, how do I do this? I'm trying to figure this out. Just different ways. But like you mentioned, it's something new you've never done, a system you've never used before. So it just takes a little bit of tries to get comfortable with it.
And you know what? I typed over here in my notes because as you're speaking, I'm typing too, just so I could go back to it. You mentioned the language, right? Like you have colleagues that speak more than one language, and you can connect the business owner, if they want Spanish or English or any other language that they feel comfortable in. I think the important thing there that, even though, yes, we can connect them to someone that speaks their language, it's that they need to be making the best informed decision for their business, right? So if I'm hearing a lot of information and facts come through in English, and I sort of understand English, but I'm more comfortable with Spanish, I might still make the wrong decision because I thought you told me something when in reality it was the opposite. And I also think that it's important to like meet the client where they're at, right? Especially since there's a lot of Latino clients in the U.S. that are starting businesses. There's a lot of people who are immigrants that are starting businesses, and not just Latinos. I have clients from that have migrated to the U.S. and they hit a niche or they're really good at what they do, and then they start their own business. But they're from other countries, right? So they want to feel comfortable in their languages, and I think it's very scary. Like if someone had told me that all this stuff I would encounter in the last 10, 15 years when I started this business would have been like stuff that I would have to deal with, I don't think I would have ever started my business because it's a lot.
It's definitely not easy, and there's a lot of things that come into play with having a business, right?
Yeah.
So it's definitely not an easy task. But yes, to just touch a little bit more on that, the Latino market, it's a very big market. And I do think, and you can probably agree, Randy, that I feel like they're underserved sometimes, right? You don't know what you don't know, and sometimes they need different type of support, right? They need that accountant that's telling them, hey, for protection, you should convert from a sole proprietorship to an LLC or a corporation. Hey, for protection, you should implement payroll. Don't just pay them with un cheque, right? Sin deducciones. Just educate, and I think that's also what fulfills my duty, my role to society is I have the ability to support my Spanish-speaking clients, my community. And yes, I love that about Paychex, that we recognize, hey, this community might be underserved. How can we best support them, right? And there's always something that I mentioned to clients. I've never forget, one client told me this. He said, Sharlene, I understand 75% English, but it's the 25% that I don't really understand that typically is the most important, which is why I want to have a conversation with you in Spanish. And I never forget that, and it makes so much sense because yes, we live in a state, Randy and I are both from California. We live in a state where the two top languages are English and Spanish, right? So of course, Latinos, they can get by speaking in English, but to this client's point is yes, but do you really understand in greater depth like what this means in English, right? And
or
that's
like
where
the financial repercussions of a decision, or
yes,
legal understanding of W-2 employees versus 1099 employees, right? And it's a big difference, but it could be very costly if you misclassify
exactly,
employees, right?
very costly, and that's where I think our jobs are to just educate, right? At the end of the day, even if they don't do payroll now, as long as I told them, hey, this is not to scare you, but this is what could happen, but this is also how you can avoid it from happening, right? And then, hopefully down the line or right there and then they recognize the liability and they implement something new within their business.
All right. Yeah. Thank you for that. I know we went a little bit more in depth with that one, but I think it's important topics to touch. And then my other question for you, it's the year end is over. There's a lot of emphasis on year end stuff, closing the books and all this stuff. What about now? Like it's January. What should business owners be looking at in terms of the payroll, or what they should be considering? Because I feel like year end starts now, right? It shouldn't start in December, because if you're looking at your payroll and stuff like that at the end of the year, of course it's helpful because you're gonna find if there's any changes or errors or whatever going on. What do you recommend business owners should be looking at right now in the beginning of the year in terms of payroll?
In terms of payroll, I mean, you mentioned it. It's starting now rather than trying to squeeze in some sort of wages the last 2 weeks of the year, where we see it more often, right? We do get an influx of throughout the year, hey, I know I need to start payroll for myself, or hey, I hired employees putting them on payroll. Yes, not forgetting to the last minute, just because like anything, right? There's holidays that work against us, and that's just less time that our implementations team can have to turn around the account and make sure state IDs. I think that's another thing, right? State IDs, depending on which state they're doing business, some take more than a week, right? It takes some time, so it just creates more just extra work. I think we've been discussing efficiency. It's just not being efficient, right? Not being as efficient as possible. So definitely, if you're being advised sooner rather than later, starting payroll. Outside of payroll, though, I think, conversations that I'm also having for my California employers that have less than 5 employees is the California retirement mandate. So the deadline for CalSavers is December 31st, 2025. So that is where, hey, if you have 1 W-2 through 4 W-2s, the owner, to ensure they're in compliance, they need to opt into CalSavers, or they need to opt into a retirement plan through Paychex.
Yeah, and then just to make sure that the listeners can understand, CalSavers is the retirement program that was put or made available through the state of California. So it's like a low-cost option. And then doing your own private retirement plan, like a 401, right, or a simple IRA for your employees, that would be like a private route that people or employers are taking. There is federal tax credits for stuff like that, whether you do it through the state or through private route, like through you guys, Paychex. I think, even there as well, like doing it on your own through the state, it's a DIY. You have to make the payments into the state account based on the payroll every pay period that you run. And then with the private one through you guys, you guys have your partners you work with to implement the retirement plans. Everything gets pulled automatically from the business bank account, and then those numbers show up in your reports and payroll, right, in your system. So I find it really helpful too, because then you have to turn around and then accurately book all of those transactions in your books, right? So it's not just like, hey, I could do this, but I think a lot of small businesses, when they start, they do a lot of things on their own. One, because you're like, hey, instead of paying for someone to do that, I could do it. But then you get to the point where you can't do that. You can't be making these payments, and then you're financially liable for your employee's retirement account. So if anything's wrong,
if an employee, changed their contributions and wants it to reflect the next pay period, and you didn't, update that with CalSavers, again, you can be at more risk of just not being in compliance, and that's not our goal, right? Our goal is to make sure business is in compliance, but also giving you time back, right? We can handle the admin work. You go focus on your business, go focus on, growing it, managing employees. We'll take care of it.
Yeah, no, definitely. Okay, and then I think, the last couple of things that I want to share with people on the show is some resources that I found from Paychex, right, which they make available every year. One, I have this one here. So this is the key facts and figures for 2024.
Yes, you should be getting a 2025 soon.
Yeah, this is super helpful for me because it's a quick reference, right? It has all the tax brackets. It has how much money you can put away in your retirement account. It went up to $23,000 in 2024 from $22,500 in 2023. Standard deductions for married, head of household, single. So all this stuff. So I just wanted to share, I think, the link. All right. This one is the Accounting Professionals publication. While you guys share with us the U.S. Tax Master Guide, that's more for accountants, not really for business owners. You don't need to read that. But here are the tax facts and figures, so then you can download it. There's also depreciation. I don't really use this one too much, but that's because my software updates the numbers for us. And then sales tax. So I don't do sales tax for clients, so I don't use this one as much, but there are accountants that only do sales tax for their client. And then year-end guide for accountants. So this one's super cool because I always refer to it and send it out to my clients every year. The other one I wanted to share is the Paychex State Resources for Your Business. I actually thought this was super cool because I have clients who are like, hey, I want to expand and I want to grow in other states. And, you guys help in all 50 states, which I think is amazing because you guys...
Correct.
But
Multi-state payrolls.
yeah, so then just, if I have employees in California, in New York, or in Pennsylvania, there's so many different state laws that are come into effect for payroll purposes. And then city, right? So like you can click on the state and it'll take you to that state's like withholding rates and stuff like that. So I love that you guys have these resources all year round and they get updated every year, right? Or constantly. So that's why I wanted to share this stuff with you
Correct.
guys.
Yes. Always being updated.
Yeah, or even your state ID registration, like you guys can help with that because every state needs a employer payroll like tax identification number, and not a lot of business owners think that it's the same number when they register their LLC or their S corp.
I get that
Yeah.
number very often where, I'm asking and they're like, here it is. And I'm like, oh no, that is your corporation number. No, we need to register. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
I mentioned a little bit earlier, it's just that one-on-one support and educating them. Since I am an expert, I know you need to have these registrations, right? And some states require more than one, right? It's not only state tax, but it's also unemployment tax. In other states, don't have a applicable state ID. So it's just that extra knowledge that we have with making sure, hey, when we create your payroll account, we have the capability of assisting you with registering for these applicable IDs because our goal is to make sure everything is done correctly, right? But yes, definitely can assist with multi-state payrolls and then of course out-of-state payrolls as well.
Cool. Yes. Yes. And I love that because I have clients in all. Well, not all 50 states, but I have clients across a few states, maybe like 7 or 8 states and I'm actually talking to a new client right now from North Dakota, and I'm like, whoa, I don't have the resources, nor do I have the knowledge of payroll in North Dakota, right? So like stuff like that, I think that's when I rely on you guys, just so the audience knows that you guys assist in all 50 states, even if I am your accountant referring you to Charlene, who's based here in California. She has the resources to refer to that they have offices in all these states, right? I just wanted to touch on this briefly because I wanted to make or differentiate the differences between payroll and HR, right? So it's almost like taxes and bookkeeping and CFO. A lot of people don't know what each branch or division does, and people think it's all one, right? So if they think they're hiring you, they think they're also probably hiring like an HR person at the same time. And I want to make that differentiation that because you don't work with clients in HR, right? So tell me how that works a little bit with Paychex.
Yes, yeah. So essentially, once I'm introduced to a business owner, here is where it's very important for me just to get an overview of what they're doing, right? Or what are their maybe goals, or what are maybe some previous experience issues, or what they want to accomplish. But with respect to HR, if they're coming in wanting to create that HR foundation, and what I tell clients all the time, California is a very employee-friendly state, right? There are definitely many laws that protect an employee. So our goal is to make sure we provide you with all of the resources and support as a business owner to protect yourself. So if I'm having an initial conversation and the client does express assistance with creating that HR infrastructure, or this is not their first go around with businesses, they've had businesses in the past, they know what could happen or what they don't want to happen, we have the ability to help with HR. And what I tell clients is, like anything, even our payroll, right? It's can go, we have different levels of support. It can be basic support to our full suite support. But to highlight or to touch on the HR side, although I don't directly, my expertise is payroll. Of course, I've been here for quite some time to know a little bit about everything. And definitely if a client is expressing interest, or hey, I need you guys to come in and help create that infrastructure, we can go ahead and do that, right? So here at Paychex, we have our HR point of contact contact, and this person just highlights key things that came into play this year or how we can help. And that is where, again, service, right? Our HR does differentiate in the sense that it's not just, someone that picks up the phone and addresses a question. We have the capability to assign you with we call it HR business partners. It's essentially an HR certified professional assigned to your account that does an assessment of the business, right? Based on your industry, based on your state, and definitely creates this plan to ensure that we assist you with all these things to ensure the business is in compliance. Quick things that come to mind is definitely making sure employee files are up to date. Biggest one is employee handbook. We will assist you with creating a customized employee handbook, Spanish and English, all of the trainings that come into play, and then just the day-to-day managing employees, right? The more employees, sometimes the more headaches. So definitely can assist with just addressing your concerns. Like, hey, I'm dealing with this scenario. What is the legal advice?
Yeah, and I want to say like a couple of things to that. Like I think employee handbook is a game changer for a lot of companies because you can have your employees come in day one and that'll be their first task. Sit down and read this employee handbook. It sets the tone for your business. It sets the tones for expectations. I think I was operating without it for a couple of years. And then once I created it, a lot of the questions I was being asked were answered. So, and it reduced a lot of confusion. So I also just want to make sure that like business owners understand that it is a separate service you pay for, right? That signing you up with Paychex Payroll is one service. Signing you up with Paychex 401 or Paychex HR is a separate service. But again, you get assigned your individual person you work with. And like I think for me, it was a big game changer. I didn't really understand why that was so important until I had it and I had my employees read that. That's like probably the first thing I have them do with the day one. Why? Because one, it's probably going to take them like 2-3 hours to read through like 100 pages, right? But you guys have already thought of like everything and anything for the state of California, and it's like, I need that because I'm not an HR professional, right? Like I might know some stuff based on my own personal experience of being an employee, but I don't know what's really law or not, or what's like, what are my rights and stuff like that. Like the way you guys do and the way you put it on that. The reason I brought this up was just so we could touch on it. I know you don't do that. I know you have your specialist payroll person you work with and you refer clients over. But again, it's always that same point of contact person, right? Exactly.
Just to point out, it's still within the Paychex umbrella. We just have, an expert for each area. So a payroll expert, a 401k expert, an HR expert. But we're all partners here and we all work together. But just, they focus on their area of expertise, but we can definitely assist with everything. And one last note, Randy, you mentioned, yes, although different supports will be additional cost, our full suite essentially, we have the ability to bundle everything in, right? So we can bundle for one cost, the HR, the payroll, and the 401k to, try to minimize cost as well. And also with us, there's no contracts, right? We feel we have to earn your business payroll to payroll. So there are occasions where clients want us to come in the beginning with creating that HR infrastructure, but they're not, held to it forever, right? If they feel that, hey, I have it pretty much handled here, they can always scale back down, and vice versa. Start, simple payroll and scale up to more support. Just at the end of the day, our goal is to make sure, we can meet your needs and we can grow with you, which we can definitely do so.
Yeah. No, and I love that. I love that because, the goal is always to grow, I think, for a lot of business owners. But in just my experience with businesses that I've worked with, some businesses have had to scale back, especially during the pandemic. A lot of restaurants closed or restaurants scaled from having like 20 employees to like 5. Right? So like imagine you're like, crap, I was paying for all these extra services and you also have to scale that down. But that doesn't mean like maybe in 2 years you'll be right back up to 30, 40 employees,
Exactly.
I think that a lot of people don't understand that from the business aspect because they don't see it. They don't see too many businesses going out of business every year. They don't see businesses like growing or scaling back or scaling 10 times 10 because that's their goal they want to reach in the next 2-3 years, right? I'm also just really grateful that I have you guys on board with me because you have been a huge resource. And again, this one here, this PDF I have here, I just wanted to show it so that business owners know that there's this 2025 HR compliance calendar of deadlines and stuff, and I thought it was one super cool because nobody really puts out stuff like this out there. I know all these deadlines because it's my job, right? Like I'm like, okay, I know January 31st, January 1st, I know like January 15th deadline for the estimate. They made it super user friendly, or it's just really, it's a nice visual. So I'll put all these links on the podcast show notes so people can access them. And then I think this is the end, Sharlene. So just if you want to say how can someone get a hold of you, right? Aside from me be like, hey, go speak to her. Like how can someone get a hold of you if they're looking for like a payroll provider?
Yes, I mean, they can reach out to me directly. I don't know if maybe Randy, you can drop the link to my direct phone number and email here at Paychex, and I'd be more than happy to assist, even educate, right? At the end of the day, whether you're ready, maybe not right now, but in the future, I'd be more than happy to just, give you some insight on what maybe you should be thinking about in the future, just because at the end of the day, it's education. So if I can educate other people and help them, of course, that's my main goal. I've done my job. So I'll be sure to include my contact information so you guys can reach out to me.
I'm adding it right now, please. So there's your email. It's Dominguez at paychex.com. I love this. Again, Sharlene, thank you so much for your time. I know we went over, but we have always a lot of resources for business owners. So I'm excited you're here for the first time, and I'm really excited to bring you on maybe in the second or third time.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
Okay. Thank you for listening to this episode. If you found this episode valuable, please subscribe, rate, and share this podcast with all your friends. This will help our Latinx business community grow, and I invite you to connect to us and send us an email. The email address is randy@rgtaxes.com, and share your questions and comments with us. See you at the next one. Bye now.